As of August 2016, the population on planet Earth reached a staggering 7.5 billion people, but the global challenges human beings are confronting now are small compared to what is forecast over the coming decades. United Nations estimates predict the world's population to hit 8.5 billion by 2030, 9.7 billion in 2050, reaching 11.2 billion by the year 2100. The need to produce enough food and housing for this vast number of human beings presents enormous challenges, not just for third world countries, but also for Western cities and our environment. Governments around the world have been forced to rapidly reorganize infrastructure, transportation, and housing. There are a range of push and pull factors driving the migration of increasing numbers of people away from rural communities and subsistence living into cities where there are greater prospects for education, access to healthcare, and higher paying jobs. In this program, we will compare the rapid urbanization in third world countries like Malawi in Africa with Singapore, which in just 40 years transformed itself from being a third world nation to becoming the most urbanized society in the world. In Singapore, 100% of its population is urbanized with a continuing annual growth rate of 2%. Average household size has dropped from 5.3 people per household in 1970 to 3.4 today. By contrast, Malawi has had a higher rate of urbanization, but from a much lower base. In 2009, Malawi was rated as the fastest urbanizing country in the world. However, its rapid urbanization has not been followed by economic growth and prosperity. The country still remains one of the poorest in the world. The main reason for this has been due to a lack of economic development in the major urban centres, which has seen the poverty persist in these populated areas. Malawi is presently urbanising at a rate of 3.8% per year. By 2015, 16% of its population had urbanised. Singapore, the city, is a modern metropolis of stunning architecture, high fashion, and a major centre of global finance. It is incredibly small. At just 720 square kilometres, Singapore is a tiny island city-state, but in order to expand further, has started to include the land from dozens of much smaller surrounding islands. The total population of Singapore is 5.6 million, and the rate of growth has been relatively stable at 1.2% since 2014. It's hard to imagine that in 1970, at the dawn of its urbanisation, just 380,000 people actually own their own place of residence here. Home ownership rates have since skyrocketed to 90% of the population. Singapore's urbanisation transformation is impressive. The positive effects of urbanisation are seen in infant mortality rates, which dropped from 20.5 babies per 1,000 live birds in 1970 to just 1.7 babies for every 1,000 birds by 2015. Average life expectancy in 1970 was 65.8 years. Today, Singapore boasts an average life expectancy of 83 years. Infant mortality rates in Malawi have also steadily fallen over the past 40 years, but from a much higher base and still remain high. In 1971, mortality rates were running at 335 deaths per every 1,000 babies born. By 2016, Malawi has reduced this figure to 60 deaths per every 1,000 babies born. Average life expectancies have been increasing but remain low with estimates from World Health Organization in 2015 of 58 years. Malawi geographically is very different. It is a landlocked country that shares its borders with three countries: Zambia to the northwest, Tanzania to the northeast, and Mozambique on the east, south, and west. The country is separated from Tanzania and Mozambique by Lake Malawi, which accounts for about a third of the country's size. The geographical location of its urbanized population is predominantly spread across 4 small cities, including the capital city, Lilongwe. Whilst accurate figures are not reliably available, latest estimates in 2016 placed Malawi's total population at approximately 17.7 million, nearly 3 times the population of Singapore. By contrast, the capital city of Lilongwe has a population of only 905,000. The main reason for such a small capital city is because of a lack of infrastructure has caused government to invest in public services across rural areas, resulting in the growth of numerous micro-trading precincts throughout the rural regions. Combined with poor infrastructure investment and development, this has slowed the rate of urbanisation out of rural areas into the core cities. Malawi has been urbanising slowly over the same period as Singapore. However, its much greater size, larger rural population spread, and a long and protracted neighbouring civil war in Mozambique have created significant challenges improving infrastructure and controlling immigration flows across its borders. Home ownership rates have always been high, however 90% of the population still live in poverty. The traditional mud brick home is still used by approximately half of the population, with an average household size of 4.3 people. Only a small percentage of households have access to indoor piped water or electricity, and most still use pit toilets. Wood is typically used for energy and lighting needs. Improved educational outcomes, healthcare and employment opportunities in the cities, especially in Lilongwe, are the major drivers of migration out of the rural areas in Malawi. For all the clear benefits of urbanisation across the globe, are we happier and more fulfilled? In most all first world countries, divorce rates are steadily climbing and more people are choosing to remain single. The answer to the benefits of urbanisation will be an interesting question in 20 years' time.